Welcome back to our 9th grade Introduction to Technology series. Today we're going to talk about digital communications, which is our final unit in the course. So let's get started. Let's define what is digital communications, our essential question. Basically, we're using computers for advertising design on the web, in television, and in printed media. Digital media can be entertaining and informative. We communicate all the time. Communication is present in the form of just talking and written communication, and whenever you use electronics means, then you're talking about digital communications. What are some careers in digital communications? Well, we can get into web design. You can get into advertising, and advertising in the form of television, billboards, magazines, radio. They're all type of careers related to digital communications. You can get into computer animation. Computer animation is not just making movies anymore, but you see computer animation everywhere. Go to a sports game, you'll see it on the jumbotrons. Go to just about any place. Look at any television commercial, and it's not just big business anymore. There are actually local companies using computer animation to create commercials these days. Computer game design, the graphic artist, the audio designer, the people in charge of making sure that everything sounds good for everything, whether you're working in a television studio or radio or even for the music industry. Packaging design, film and television, and these are just to name a few where you could find careers related to digital communications. So what are some of the tools of the graphic designer? If you're looking at digital means working on the computer, you're going to have various web tools that you'll use a lot of. You'll learn HTML. You can work with a program called Dreamweaver, which is Adobe's product, or Microsoft has a program called FrontPage. Dreamweaver and FrontPage are great sources to create web pages for those people that just don't really know HTML coding very well. If you're talking about game tools, there are a variety of game tools out there that anybody can use these days. There is a program called GameMaker, which is great for two-dimensional games, along with Flash. Blender is our 3D modeling and animation program that we use, but it is also capable of making 3D computer games. Corona is another great program for porting apps to iPhone and Android. You have to learn a programming language called Lua to be able to use Corona, but it's a program that's really taking off, and you see a lot of their products in the app stores. If you're talking about graphic design tools, you can work with Photoshop. And again, Photoshop is an Adobe product. A lot of people use Photoshop to edit pictures. GIMP is a free open source alternative to Photoshop. It operates a lot like Photoshop, and you can do many of the same things, but it's absolutely free to use. Adobe Illustrator are just a few to name for graphic design. There are technical design tools. You think about drafting. Drafting is technically a form of graphic communication. You can use SketchUp to design architectural models. Many of the 3D houses that you'd find on Google Earth are made in SketchUp. We have AutoCAD, which you've already experienced this year. ProjectCAD, which is another alternative to AutoCAD. SolidWorks is a 3D modeling program that we use, which is used heavily in the design industry. We use it across the hall in our design classes. In fact, we use to design the knobs for the Gumball machines. SoftPlan is an architectural design program that we use. And these are just many of the programs that you can use. So, the essential question, how do I use graphic design for advertising and packaging? So what we're going to do is we're going to create a project. Adobe Photoshop is the most widely used program out there, but it does cost money. It is a program that we're going to use to make our advertisement. I will show you what GIMP can do. GIMP is a free open source alternative. In fact, in the software download page that I have on the Canvas site, I actually have the link that goes right to GIMP. GIMP stands for GNU Image Manipulation Program. GNU is the for open source licensing that most open source software is released by, and it is becoming very popular in the professional industry. We need to talk about file formats, because when you start working with graphic programs, you're going to find out that there are a lot of different files that you need to work with. For example, a Photoshop file is a .psd file. Also, if you work with GIMP files, they're going to be saved as a .xcf file. These are not image files. If you try to take one of these files that you work with and try to put it into a web page or into an advertisement, it's not going to work because it's not truly a graphic image. These are just file formats that maintain the structure of those type of files. Some of the popular image files that you will find. Here's a picture of a monkey head saved two different ways. The first one is saved as a JPEG image. That's going to be the most common format that you use when you take pictures with your phone, and you see a lot of pictures on the web. They're going to be a JPEG. The problem with a JPEG image is they do not support transparency. And what I mean by transparency is this picture was created without any of this white background around the monkey head. But because it's saved as a bitmap or JPEG or a TIF file, it's going to put white in that place where transparency should be. As opposed to this example here on the right, this was saved as a PNG file, a .png type extension. And these type of files support transparency. GIF files are an older format that also supports transparency, and both of these also support animation. You see animations like this often on the web. So the difference between a GIF and a PNG file is GIF only supports 256 colors, where a PNG supports millions of colors, so it looks realistic, like a good file format. So my recommendation as you're saving images, always just work in a PNG file. That is becoming the more popular format these days. Let's talk about Photoshop. Now, in past years we've worked with Adobe CS4. We're going to be working with Adobe CS6 this year. So we need to work on some of the changes that come along with the program. But when you work with Adobe Photoshop, you'll see that your tools go down the left-hand side. You have your standard navigation tools across the top of the screen. On the right-hand side, you've got some different panels, and you also have a layers menu. Layers will be the most important thing that you need to work with a Photoshop image. So here's what layers are represented by. Basically, you think of every layer will have something drawn in it. And when these layers are all stacked up, it's going to look like a final picture. But because we work in different layers, if we say, well, we want to change this red ink to something else, you just change it on that layer. It will not affect all of the other layers. And by working with layers, we can change the order of them to put things above or below and to stack them up. So layers are used to control the various elements of your project. You know, you work with layers, you can change individual features quite easily. Now, your Photoshop projects. Here's what we're going to be doing in class. Follow the instructions in the class Moodle in the Canvas, which we've switched to now this year. You're going to complete at least 2 photo editing tutorials by yourself or with a partner. So on the Canvas site, I have a bunch of tutorials that you can look at. You decide which ones you would like to do and just experiment with some of the different features of Photoshop in order to complete those projects. The main part of this project is going to be to complete an advertisement or packaging label for your Gumball Machine project. And we will discuss details more about this in class, but there are sample files for you to work with, and your job is to create a really nice advertisement or packaging label to sell a Gumball machine. So think about all those things that would be on a professional advertisement in order to make this project work out. Here are some of the details of that project. You're going to create an advertisement or packaging label for your Gumball machine in Photoshop, and you're going to follow these guidelines. We're giving you an image size to work with. You're going to contain at least one image of the Gumball machine. You're going to contain a project name and a slogan. You're going to use appropriate background and fill colors. You want to put something on to show like age limits, like not intended for children under a certain age for, say, choking hazards because of the candy. Come up with a price for the machine, some user recommendations, and any other elements appropriate for the project. You can have some fun with this. You can try to be very serious with it, or be a little comical with this as you put the thing together. It's a nice practice project for this activity. And that's about it. Our next lesson is going to talk about computer animation, so good luck with your Gumball Machine ad.